Okay, so I just watched In the Shadow of the Moon on Netflix last night, and it was an okay movie. I watched the whole thing, and it definitely wasn't the worst movie on Netflix or the worst movie I've ever seen. But there's all these huge, glaring plot holes and problems with the movie that were just so dumb that I went online and looked for your reviews and everything, and everyone just said, "Oh yeah, it's a good sci-fi movie," and "Oh yeah, it's good," and then even on Reddit, nobody really said how dumb everything was that happened in this movie. So I just wanted to talk about why it was so dumb. So the first thing is the killing method. So for some reason, this guy's creating a special time-sensitive isotope that can reach across time to melt someone's brain. But when they're testing it, they're just testing it not back in time, just during time. And he's like, "Oh, I made this special isotope. And then if we combine it with chronological isotopes, we can melt people's brain in the past." And so it seems like that would be really important, and there's a reason that you would need to melt people's brains in the past, and that's going to be, an important plot point, or at least a plot point that makes sense. But then it turns out that in the first part of the movie, the whole reason that they're trying to find that girl is because he just instantly activates the isotope as soon as she injects it, pretty much. And so she injects it, he activates it, and these people die, and then she's still going to inject it into more people, the girl at the club. And so she goes to do that, but the other people have already been dead for a while. And so the only thing I could think of is that he'd make that isotope to kill everyone at once after she's already gone. So she could have injected everybody, in that time period and then left, and then he could have activated it, and then there would have been no suspect because she would have been gone and there would have been no clues, and nobody would have rushed over to the nightclub because there wouldn't have been any dead bodies. So none of that made sense, because why not just wait until everybody's injected in that time period and then kill them? And then if you're just going to kill them immediately after she injects them, why not just have her slice their throats or shoot them with a gun or just do something immediate? There's a million ways to kill them immediately, or they could have used some future tech of, a magic gun that just melts their brains immediately. Like, why are you injecting them at all? That didn't make any sense. And that's the whole reason why they're tracking her in the first place. So that was just dumb. And there's no reason for that. If there's a reason, leave it below in the comments. And going along with that is she's running around town stabbing everyone with these metal needles. But it would appear that the first three people didn't even know that they were stabbed. Like, they were just fine with being attacked by some random woman in a hoodie and being stabbed in the neck. And then they just went about their day. Like, the high-end piano player, didn't call the cops and say, "I was attacked by some crazy lady that stabbed me in the neck," and, maybe called off his performance because he thought something might be going on, or, go to a hospital because he was stabbed in the neck. And they said it was deep enough to reach the nervous system or deep enough to reach bone or something. So it probably hurt when they were stabbed. And the girl in the club, looked pretty distressed that somebody came up and stabbed her in the neck. So I would assume that, the first three people, it was kind of traumatic, but then they just go to work normally. Or, maybe they were stabbed a week ago and they had reported it to the police and then they were activated later. But again, that goes back to the point of, why didn't he wait to activate everybody, after she stabbed everybody, and why activate three people and then she still has to stab someone else? So none of that makes sense. It just made it seem like in the beginning of the movie, they had all got stabbed, but didn't realize they were stabbed. But then you learn later that they were violently stabbed and it went really deep and it must have hurt. And that just apparently nobody cared about the first three people. Nobody decided to report it to the police. And so, yeah, that's the only, why make a weapon? Yeah, so none of that makes sense. Why make a weapon that you have to inject deeply to stab someone, but then it doesn't kill them immediately? It only kills them later, but she has to go physically stab each one, and they could call the cops, or they could, stop her, or say this lady's running around stabbing everybody. So that's really dumb. And the second dumb thing that they just kind of shoehorned in there is that they made these attacks a whole race thing. And so, 10 years later, there's still protests about how he killed that innocent black woman in the subway. But the cops had a murder weapon and they had evidence that she was the one that actually killed these people around town, even though they didn't know how she did it. Like, they knew it was her. And so they knew that she was running around murdering people, and she had broken, his partner's leg, and then he attacked him, and, he didn't have his gun, and she was fighting with him. So did the cops just, not say anything to the press? Because it felt like they were just trying to shoehorn in, today's racial issues into some, a serial killer story from 1988, which, would have been completely different. And they had all the evidence, and they knew that she was running around killing people, and she had hurt his partner. So unless the cops just didn't say anything, and they're like, oh yeah, for some reason this woman died, and oh yeah, we have no idea who killed anyone. They're holding all these protests 10 years later, and remembering every year, oh, remember that serial killer that the cops killed? That just didn't make any sense. So that was dumb. And then the third thing was how the movie made it seem like she could die without consequences because she was traveling back in time. And I thought that she was just kind of time traveling with her conscience or whatever, or she was sending a copy of herself. And so it was okay if she died because she'd still just end up in the past anyways. And maybe this was intentional to kind of throw you off of the twist at the end that he really does kill her, but we'll talk about how stupid that twist is. But the second time she comes back, she's in a plane, and then it looks like she just crashes the plane to kill herself to go back because she couldn't escape. But turns out she just crash landed the plane, and it was on fire, and she was fine. She just hopped out and managed to escape. And I guess she must have crash landed near that beach, but so they were searching the whole beach, and then they didn't notice this open manhole cover where the machine would have been gone, which is also stupid how the whole machine disappears. But anyways, yeah, so they set it up she can just die to go back because she's just sending a copy or whatever, but then it turns out, no, she really is dead. She can die, but she can't die twice, but she can crash land a plane and it be on fire and exploding and stuff, but she's fine. She can just go back. So, yeah. But the only problem with that is that the whole point of the movie is that you can change the future based on what you do in the past. And so they could have changed her future based on what they did in the past, and he knew what happens in her future, so the main character could have told her, hey, I'm going to kill you, tell the guy not to start melting everyone's brains before you leave the current time period, or, hey, avoid this intersection, because the whole point of the movie is that you can change the future by killing people in the past. So none of that makes sense either. And I think some people think it's maybe an alternate timeline or things happen differently, but I think it's pretty explicit at the end of the movie. It's rewinding time, and it's basically fixing the current timeline. She basically fixes so that the terrorist attack doesn't happen, and then that doesn't lead to the Civil War. And so what they're doing in the past affects their current timeline. And so when he's raising her, when the main character is raising her and teaching her, he can teach her how to avoid being caught. He can work on the isotope, and then they can fix that too, so that they can fix her future, and everything can be fixed, and he would actually have a normal life, and it would fix his life and her life. And so they try to have it both ways. They try to say, well, if it already happened, it already happened. But then they're changing the future. That's the whole point of the movie, is that they're trying to change the future, and they're not trying to create a new timeline, is what it sounded like. And so when you have things like Dark on Netflix, which is a really good German show, everything, even if you're time traveling, what already happened. And so even when you're time traveling, it doesn't affect it. And so I thought that would be really interesting if that's what they were going to do, that okay, what already happened and you can't affect it. But then at the end, it shows that, okay, she does affect it. And so if time travel really worked, that terrorist attack wouldn't have happened in the first place. What already happened. If that makes any sense at all. So that's really dumb, because they try to say both ways that, okay, it already happened. I already died in the future, but I'm going to go back in the past and then change the future anyways. But I can't change my own future, even though it hasn't happened yet. So I guess they just wanted her to die, but they also wanted to fix the future or whatever. And then everything else was just kind of minor, like having the time travel device. For some reason, it's in a cave and everything time travels with it. So there was power cables and everything plugged in, and all these wires running into the water and stuff. But when she travels back in time, like everything disappears, which doesn't make any sense. It seems like she would disappear inside the time capsule. But if you can create a field that just teleports anything inside of it, like what happens? Like, why do you have the power cables or like just have the device teleport her, not have a device? It just didn't make any sense to have everything disappear and reappear. And if they would need her to travel back with that, like what they'd have to build it into the cave. That would make more sense, is that the machine is being built in the cave, and then he would go explore the cave and see them building it and then try to sabotage it or whatever to try to stop, the future happening. And that would have been a better way to just have him, instead of having him sit on the beach, the main character sit on the beach, and then the scientist sees him and they're like, oh crap, he's on the beach. It's like, yeah, but he's just sitting there and he's just waiting for some reason. But if instead he was discovering that they were building this time machine, inside that cave, and then he was trying to sabotage it, and then they kidnapped him, that would have made more sense. Yeah, that's about it. I mean, the first half of the movie was really good. The first half hour, I liked the whole story and where it was going. But then after seeing how she's killing the people in the past, and then they have the isotope, and then how he's activating it from the future, but why not just let her escape the past until she's back in the future safely and then activate everybody? And she could have done all the missions all the time apart, and then the isotope would have still been in the past or whatever, and then he could have activated everyone dying at the same time at the end of the movie, and then it would have fixed the future. And that would have made a lot more sense with how they set it up. And I think they wouldn't have given away so much at the beginning, because he really would have been tracking these murders. They still wouldn't know who it is, but they're tracking these clues and they're trying to find the person that's looks like they're killing someone, all at the same time in different places all across the world. But yeah, they just activates it and they can't find her until the very end, and then the story all comes together, something like that. It was just dumb how they put it together. So anyways, those are my thoughts. I thought it was weird. I thought there was a lot of plot holes. First part was good, but I don't know. I just had to rant about this somewhere. So let me know what you think in the comments. Have a great day. Go do something nice for someone, and we'll see you later.